I want to discuss about the difference between tribal child raising and the 21st century child raising. So, as you already know, our population is rising quite steadily, and as our population continues to rise, we are moving away from tribal child raising. So, when you hear the word tribal, a lot of people associate tribal as African tribe, a Native American tribe, Arabian tribe in the desert, and it's connected to like a primitive time. We think of it as like a hunting and gathering period on planet Earth. Okay, that tribal child raising is still very much here on planet Earth. Okay. It may not be what we call in our Western American culture, we could say, but they're here still in places around the planet, but we're also very much in other species. Okay, so one of the species that has a very long-standing tribal child raising is the orcas. We can also see as the elephants as well. Okay, so when we look at the orcas, okay, there's a matriarch, and we know there's a patriarch in this pod. Okay, a pod. Okay, of orcas could be like 12 to these 30 orcas that pretty much spend their whole life together. Okay, so the matriarch very much teaches, you could say, the younger, the children. Okay, and the matriarch is not just one. There's several. You could say like there's aunts, and then there's the grandmothers, and they very much all take care of all the children in the pod. So there could be about 5 to 7 children in the pod, okay? And all of the matriarchs basically are in charge of teaching these young ones, okay? Now, when it comes to, we can switch over to like the elephant. So when the elephants go, and we can say their pilgrimage to the water hole, the female matriarch, okay, she guides the young ones, okay, through down a path that is a path considered to be most protected. While the men, they take the path, the patriarch, they take the path of kind of, it's hot, it's a little rough, it's kind of like a daredevil sort of path. Okay, so for what that does is it creates strength in men, and we say the male elephants. Okay, it creates strength, and for the female, it creates a skill of vigilance. So when the matriarch's leading all of basically the pod's young ones on this journey to the water hole, basically she's developing a stronger vigilance, because she has to sense the other animals, okay, like the lions and these kinds of things. And she develops a great discernment and a great trust. While you could say the male elephants, they develop a great, you could say like a great ego, okay, because they're competitive between men. That the males, there's like a competitive sort of thing that goes on, and for the elephants, the competition, if it gets too aggressive or rough, like, you know, egos clash, some of the male elephants will be outcasted, and there'll be like just groups of like elephant males that are just, you know, all kind of ego, competitive, aggressive, that kind of thing, and they all live their own little life in that sort of bachelor pad where it's like, we're just these men kind of thing, and our egos. But with men, the male elephants, they're developing a sense of self, a sense of strong self, because through the practice of this tribal child raising, both in the orca and in the elephant, the stronger male is the one that has the opportunity to breed, basically, with the female. So a part of them developing that strength is through that ego, a strong sense of self. A strong sense of self creates a very determined breed. Okay, so as we know, like in the whale race, there's a race of males that they race in the ocean, and the one who wins basically gets to mate with the female, the whale, the matriarch, and she just kind of sits back and watches. Because there's something about a determination in a male ego that is the one who has the chance to breed. So we can see in our humanness, it's not very much like that anymore, but it has been like that in what we call our more primitive tribal child raising, where very much a lot of them could even be arranged marriages in we could say our tribe, or you can even see it like a pod, arranged marriages that would be done between the elders. The elders would decide, okay, based on the strength and the determination of this male versus the inherent, or you say that native teaching of the woman. They kind of decide, okay, who's gonna kind of come together and to create the next generation. Okay, so when it came to tribal child raising, the whole tribe had very much, like I said, the elders were involved. Okay, when it came to kind of these arranged sort of marriages that would happen a lot. Okay, between the strength of the man, the noble ego of the man is worthy of the rich teaching of the female. It's like that in the wild. If the ego of a man is aggressive and competitive, he has no rights to breed. He just lives with the other males, and they can just go do that their whole life. A noble ego of a man has tried himself through the roughness, through you could say the heat, and that kind of the drought, and has developed a sense of character and their ability to steadfast through that tough, hard life of that trail through the heat of the desert, the dryness of it. They develop a noble ego through steadfast with themselves. Okay, and the women, they develop a richness of teaching. Okay, a richness of teaching, and that usually happens through the elders. The elders in this tribal child raising very much are around the woman a lot, the young females. Okay, because they're basically trying to train them to be the leader of the next generation. So when it came to you could say even the Native American or even African sort of tribal child raising, there's a huge emphasis on a lot of women coming together. So it could be the grandma, and then the great grandma, and then the aunt, and then the other aunt, and then the cousin, and all that kind of the women, and they would all surround the young ones to basically flood them with all the teachings they'll need to raise their children to be very resourceful, very vigilant, very knowledgeable, very skillful. So the matriarch and the elephant sort of tribal child raising, leading the young ones to the water hole, is a practice of being quite resourceful, vigilant, skillful, and knowledgeable. Okay, so that none of the young ones get eaten, none of the young ones, that kind of thing, they get lost, they get trapped, these kinds of things. And a part of, even for the elephants, is the women all surrounding the young girls. That helps her to develop that skill, that resourcefulness, that knowledge, okay, that vigilance. Well, we see the ego of nobility for for men in our tribal ways has been through a lot of like physical action. And we say Native Americans, like defense, working on defense. It could even be working on like canoes or building something, working on the farm, working on the justice system for the whole tribe. So that's how they gain a nobility is through their determination, their dedication to the physical realm, such as building a canoe, such as building a hut. Okay, such as working, tending the field, or working on a spear. These things, they gain a nobility through that accomplishment of having like a physical manifestation. Like, I made this canoe. It's my physical manifestation. I have, there's a nobility to an accomplishment, okay, to completing that canoe, or completing that hut, or tending that farmland, and seeing, all of that food come together and feed the people. There's a level of that. Or it could be hunting and capturing that animal. There's a sense of victory for the male ego. And that's what makes him feel more noble, because he's providing to his tribe. Now, when a man, we say in that tribal way, when he doesn't want to provide for his tribe in that way, like he doesn't want to build a canoe, he doesn't want to do the hut, he doesn't want to hunt, he just, none of that, he's outcasted. He can become a nomad. So in the tribal ways, those men we call aggressive, competitive. They don't want to participate. They become nomads to the forest. Okay, so with the tribal child raising, like I said, if there's a boy, okay, we say the grandfather, the great grandfather, all of the uncles, all of like the male cousins come around, and they pretty early on help that boy just develop his ego from like zero to like moving forward. But there is a period for little boys where he's very much he has to develop his emotional self-care, and that happens through being with the mother for a period of time. And that could be for a whole year. It could be up to 5 years, where that little boy is just with the mother, and he's basically developing how to take care of his emotions, which is very important in that tribal child raising, is helping a boy to have an emotional self-care. So he learns that through the mother. And then he begins to go out there into the manhood, what we say, kind of like when we think of Boy Scouts, okay, where the men teach that little boy about how to make a canoe, how to make a spear, how to hunt, how to grow things, how to make the teepee, what is government, how to have justice and order and ethics and moral reason. Okay, they pretty much install that in a little boy pretty young. Okay, pretty young. You'll see little boys at like age 7, and they're hunting, and they're making canoes, and they're making like teepees, and they're tending the farm, that kind of thing. Because little boys, it's more so about responsibility. Now, in our culture, 21st century, we don't see a lot of boys having responsibility, developing nobility at a very young age. So through responsibility, boys develop nobility, which is, I say I'm going to build that canoe, and I actually do it. I say I'm going to build that hut, and I actually do it. I say I'm going to grow this farm and see it to its fruition, I do it. So when there's actually, I do it, like I win the race, I do it. That creates a noble ego for a male, and that is developed pretty early on, at like age 5 and age 7 kind of thing. These young boys are already creating a character, like what we learn in Boy Scouts. You're creating a character. You're learning about your craft as a man, and how your craft in making canoe or making a hut, your style in the physical realm. Okay, your style of building and establishing and constructing things. Okay, either it's in defense or justice, that order sort of path, or either it's more like you're a laborer, that kind of thing. So we have the laborer, we also have like the order, kind of in that tribal ways. And it all depends on just the incline of the boy. So it's never forced for a boy to be a certain thing. Basically, the mother can kind of, and the grandmother and the great grandmother and all the aunts and all of the female cousins, based on watching that child and its emotional response to certain things, such as canoe making or hunting or building a teepee, that kind of thing. The mother and the women basically can kind of arrange, okay, my child at age 5, age 7 is probably be emotionally satisfied doing this. So the decision on for the young boy on kind of what the path, either it's the path of more order, like defense and justice for the tribe, or it's more like labor, more of like, it could be farming, it could be building, is based on the emotional well-being of that little boy. Because the emotional well-being is it, for a young boy, becoming a man is basically his it's goodness. It's his goodness, I like to say. It's his goodness. When a young boy becoming a man has an emotional well-being, there's a goodness. There's a goodness to him. He has a goodness to offer the community. When there is an emotional well-being, there is no goodness a little boy or a man can offer to the community. So think of emotional well-being for a little boy, finding his natural sort of rhythm, either order, justice, labor, building. That creates goodness. Okay, it creates what we call goodness of the ego, goodness of the noble character of the man. Okay, who has a fierce honesty and a fierce command that has been tried and tried and true is what that man becomes. Tried and true. I build thousands of canoes. I know how to do it. It's tried and true. Each canoe I built has lasted, has worked. Each hut I've made has lasted, has worked. It's tried and true. And that's kind of what they're doing to develop a man, a chief, we could say. Chiefs they've been tried and true. But it's been through determination. It's been through actually being physical with life, having responsibility to complete the tasks. That gives a man a strong, tried and true, we say like a chief sort of position within themselves. Now, in raising little girls, so little girls is a little different. Like, we'll get into raising little girls in the tribal child raising. So little girls, pretty much, they are very early on, from like 0, they're just around women. Okay, women. So you'll see the difference. And the grandmother, the great grandmother, all the aunts, all the female cousins, they just basically bathe that little baby girl with their cornucopia of life. So what that looks like is a young girl is basically early on, she is she's brought into the art of trade. So a lot of women represent trade, commerce as well. Okay, so we think of men would be responsible for that, but no, the women are responsible for the commerce. They're responsible for the trade. Okay, the trade of the whole tribe. Okay, so little girls early on get to learn about all things of it could even be basket weaving, it could be even like net making for fishing, it could even about sewing kind of clothes, or sewing like sheets for the huts, or making wool, or even making herbal medicine, and even making like tea. And they get to learn the teachings that have been passed down for generation to generation. So the women, they participate in kind of a school, okay, a school of the tribe. They get to learn about the history, the oral traditions. Okay, they learn that pretty young. The oral traditions, they learn about the knowledge on, it could be herbal practices, as well as it could be practice of like sewing or making clothing, or how to basically cut an animal, how to cut a deer, these kinds of things. Girls actually learn that pretty early on. And what that does is a little girl, she's meant to be very resourceful. She's meant to be somebody that the tribe looks to for guidance. So in order to have guidance, you have to have a lot of sort of knowledge on a lot of different things. So when I say they're in charge of commerce, they're in charge also of the communication between tribes as well. So when it comes to the trade between one tribe and another tribe, the little girls learn about that. Okay, and also with the decision and the discussion, they have a say in sort of the even exchange between members in the tribe and outside of the tribe as well. So overall, these little girls, they're raised to become teachers, and they're very free in the way that they can do that. So there's so many ways they could do that. Okay, so many what we would call positions for that. But it's the same thing is what is the emotional well-being of that particular little girl is usually the how the council women decide what's going to be their best path. Okay. So in these tribal child raising, basically we say the council of the, there's a council. Okay, there's always a council for any, as we, at macro level is our American population, or, a tribe of 30 to 50 people kind of thing. There's a council, and usually that council is a part of the woman's, the woman's responsibility. Okay, because it has to do with vigilance, it has to do with skill, it has to do with resourcefulness, and it has to do with knowledge. And they're the ones that basically practice the oral tradition again and again and again of all of the generations of their people. So they are the ones that preserve and cherish the history of their tribe through many generations. So what they do is they share this with the men. When the men are needing, let's say, the chief, or we could say these the men in charge of order or justice, balance, these kinds of things. The women have studied these oral practices and teaching so well. When the men come to them, they have a guidance, like a voice of reason that can help men to make the best decision, such as, should we go to war with this tribe, or should we make peace with that tribe? Should we trade with this tribe? These kinds of things. It's very much, they go to the women for guidance, because they represent like the lineages of knowledge, and what's worked and what hasn't worked, and the stories. There's a lot of storytelling that women do, the storytelling of all many tribes, and that's what helps the current tribe to best navigate through things of like political things. Okay, like political things. So we never think of women in charge of like political things, but yeah, they actually are, and little girls are raised up to become that teacher. And overall, the teacher is the we say the highest position for the tribe, and it happens to be more so in the woman, the woman of the council of women. Okay, the elders. So now I've shared about that whole early child raising for the tribal, for the tribal way that's still going on today with orcas and elephants. Okay, they stay together their whole sort of incarnation. They get together with in partnership, and it's kind of even like arranged with elephants and kind of orcas sort of thing. A noble ego of a man and a richness of a teacher and a woman. They create the best chance for the next generation. So now, let's get into the 20th century child raising. So it's kind of convoluted, and it's a little bit confusing. Okay, so a little bit confusing, the 21st century child raising. So we are very isolated as women in raising children. We do not have access, what we call, to the elders. That's not even heard of. I'm going to go talk to my elders because I need guidance. We don't have that. Okay, we may say we have mother, grandmother, aunts and that kind of thing, but it's very isolated, particularly in the Western cultures, because we're very much about the self. We're about our family. So if we're an aunt, we're more so about my kids. I don't really care about my sister's kids. I care about my kids. Okay? And the same thing goes with the elders, and then we say the grandma and the great grandma, these kinds of things. It's more so we disconnect from our child. A lot of times it can be once our child has their own family, or the family kind of kicks out the grandmother, sort of thing, and the grandma's kind of left to just go to retirement home, that kind of thing, and die in retirement home. So the richness of the grandmother is not used. Okay. And also, when it comes to our ideology of girls were basically kind of taught that we need to be either self-reliant, or we need to be dependent on either dependent on a man, kind of thing. And that's quickly changing. So we either need to be super self-reliant or dependent on a man to have security. And that's, in the tribal ways, we are interdependent on our community of women as a little girl to better know the knowledge that we need. And little boys, okay, right now in our 21st century, they're taught that competition and aggression is how they're going to be able to conquer life. Okay, so we have that sort of thing. I have to conquer life through my will, through my I am the ego that is most important. But in tribal ways, those men would be kicked out of the tribe, the people who didn't want to collaborate with other men, because collaboration amongst men was absolutely how the men were able to be successful in hunting, farming, building huts. Okay, so as we're seeing in this 20th century, we have a lot of isolation. And when it comes to actual partnership and deciding who to have a child with, a lot of it is very much kind of random and miscellaneous in the way that we're having kids with people that have not proven themselves to us. So men in the other orca, elephant, they prove themselves to a woman to be noble. That I am noble. I'm the noblest man that you'll ever meet, and I will take care of you and take care of all of these kids and that kind of thing. No, we don't. Men don't have to prove themselves to a woman anymore, and that's the downfall for a lot of women, because we already know, since a man who hasn't proven himself to us, that if we have a kid with him, most likely he's not, if he's not noble, then he's not going to withstand time and space. He's not strong, and a strong man when there's not a strong man in the family, we as women always step up to the part. But what's happening is that since the nobility of men, it's like men are just competitive and aggressive, just kind of, it's all about me, my ego, me, kind of thing like that. And is also is for women as well, for the male energy. What's happening is that we do not understand that the child, and completing the child and getting them into their victory, actually is a test of our nobility and a test of our teaching as a man and as a woman. So when we give up on the child and we say, I don't have the energy to do it anymore, I don't really care kind of thing, it really shows that as a man, we have no nobility, and as a woman, we don't have much teaching, okay? So that's why a lot of times we don't go to the grandmother for guidance or the great grandmother, because she has proven herself, maybe in raising us, that she is not, her teaching is not, it has not been helpful to us. So with our 20th century, we're feeling quite disconnected, and you would think that we would feel more connected because there's, billions of us. And during these tribal times on the planet, there could be maybe only 400,000 people on this entire planet. During these other times, there could even be like just 3 million, 7 to going to 9 billion, and yet we feel like we have to do it all ourselves. We have to be the grandmother and the grandma and the dad and the uncles and the aunts to see this child through, and make sure that they don't fall, so that the next generation doesn't fall. Okay, so kind of just the remedy for the 20th century, I can say, child raising. The remedy, it's gonna start with the woman, and getting back that tradition of a man needs to prove himself to a woman if they are to have children. It's kind of like an arranged marriage. It's basically the elders see that this man is worthy of the woman, basically. Okay, so you think in these even times they're still happening, their little girl, you could say a family, their little girl is their gem. She is the one that's going to raise the generation, and she needs a worthy man. And or what will happen is, if she has an egotistic man who's just about himself, like a nomad, then she's not, she could fall. She could fall. So it's absolutely important to some cultures that arranged marriage is very, very important, so that the woman doesn't fall because of the man's ego, nomad, just aggression and doing what he wants. Like you see monkeys, baboon, whatever, who nomads, they just do whatever they want. There's no responsibility. I'm just swinging around doing whatever I want, kind of thing. And you'll see that in the animals, outcasted. So if a man is very irresponsible, he can destroy a woman. He can destroy a woman. Okay. So what we see a lot of going on is a lot of women feel like destroyed by their partner, their male partner, in some way. Okay, because maybe they had a child with that partner, and he didn't prove himself to be noble. He was not noble. He's not responsible, and what happens is the woman, she can fall. Okay, she can fall if she's not strong enough. Okay, and therefore she loses her teaching to offer the child, and then the child is kind of left to just like figure it out on their own. And a child cannot figure it out on their own because there's so much history and so many things about this planet that's so dynamic. A child will never, by the time they could possibly figure it out, they'll be like 50 or 60 for a lot of people. Okay, so how a child gives the best chance for the child is the tribe, because the child comes in from like 0 to 5, and they already have like all of these tools and all of these teachings and all of this knowledge and all of this education by the time they're 10. They even know how to govern. They even know how to justice and order and defense and how to farm and how to build a canoe and how to make a hut and how to have a conversation with the other tribes by 10. They already know how to do all of that because of the tribe. Now, a lot of kids right now, they don't have that. It's kind of like the mother fell, meaning her husband was irresponsible. He didn't provide for her. He didn't prove himself to be noble. He kind of nomad. Guy, he chose to do whatever he wants to do. The woman kind of fell, and then the kid is just kind of like in the streets just trying to figure it out. And it's very difficult, it's very painful, there's a lot of suffering for a child to just figure it on their own. And the ones who do figure it out pretty young are usually the ones who are very old souls, meaning they have been here so many times on planet Earth that they just naturally know, okay, this is what I need to do. So usually the old souls are the ones who kind of figure it out, have a better chance at figuring it out in our 21st century than, let's say, a new soul who has no experience on Earth. They're usually the ones that kind of stumble and falter and make mistakes and don't know how to heal and don't know how to resolve and have conflict and that kind of thing. Okay, so when we think of our 21st century, we can think of like women, they can fall because of, we could say a lot of times, let's think about like men, okay, something the man does is irresponsible that sets the woman off rhythmically, and then she can't really raise her children successfully. She can't really give her teaching because she's not really believing in herself anymore. Okay. So with little boys, so for the 20th century with boys, they have to have responsibility. I feel like that needs to return because a lot of boys, they don't have like a sense of responsibility. They look at the bachelor life of being a nomad and just being aggressive and competitive as like, that's the life. Just be a billionaire by yourself, no kids, no wife, or just a trophy wife, and you just live in the life, just like living in the yacht kind of thing. A lot of times that's usually associated with, I'm not just doing whatever, carefree. But actually what really helps a man or boy become a noble ego is he has responsibility, meaning he's responsible that he attends school, that he completes his soccer, or he completes his homework. Something about completing is important because it provides an I'm accomplished to complete something. Either it's college or it's really sticking it through with a friend or even with their job and really sticking it through. When there's a determination in a boy that's established pretty young to be responsible, that usually can cross into I'm a noble because I have done it and I have completed it and I proved to myself that I can do it. But the only downfall right now is what we're seeing is that emotional well-being is not considered for men. We're in men don't really consider that. Okay, that men have emotional well-being as well as women. And when that emotional well-being is not fulfilled by the mother, meaning she just kind of ignores his emotional well-being and just focuses on herself and her emotional well-being, well, what happens is that, like I said, in the tribal ways, emotional well-being is what brings the boy into his chosen path, whatever emotionally fulfills him. It could be building or justice or whatever. Okay, but we don't really consider is this bringing emotional well-being to the boy or the man. So a man who doesn't have emotional well-being is worse than the egotistic man. Okay, it's worse than the egotistic man. It's a very kind of crazy man, a crazy man amongst the people, a crazy man. Okay, so with the remedy for the little girls in our 21st child raising is it's allowing her to explore. Little girls, they naturally, and little boys too, explore. There's something about exploring, color and sound, and even little dolls, and dressing the dolls, and exploring, the many things of life, and the many shades, and the many plants. Because a part of that is what helps a little girl become a teacher, through exploring the outside and exploring what mom says, what sex is, or what, dad, says, what is a job. Exploring is how she can kind of find her sort of teaching on life, and as well as storytelling, because women represent the great storytellers of the planet. And long ago, before literature and writing, writing and documentation, it is storytelling. So storytelling helps a little girl come into her skill, of life, her philosophy on life. Okay, so overall, the great remedy is the partnership. Not everybody's meant to be with everybody. Not everybody is meant to have babies with everybody. Having baby with somebody is actually, it is a very sacred ritual that goes on in the tradition of the arranged marriage. It's never that we just do accidentally or we just do randomly. It's always very sacred in who we choose. But right now, it's just we're all kind of confused and we all feel lonely, and we feel that we don't have any family and friends. We feel very isolated, that we just want somebody, right? We just want somebody. But as a woman, men want to prove themselves. They want to provide because it boosts their ego when they provide for their woman and she's like, or when they prove themselves and she's like, they love that. It boosts their ego. Okay, so when we really up the game and say to men, like, yeah, I want you to provide for me, I want you to prove yourself to me, they're like, oh, okay. Especially if a woman is very rich in her spirit, because a man wants that. He wants his yin to his yang. He's very physical about, ego, nobility, making that go on, building the canoes, the teepees. And the woman is very much spiritual. She has so much life. So he wants that yin to his yang. So if as women, if we really focus on our yin energy, really developing that, being rich with our teaching, in whatever way that could be, and emotional well-being, the men are going to want to provide and prove themselves to us. They're going to want to conquer their demons and their their habits and their maybe their addictions and their stuff, whatever we say their stuff is. Okay, because it's a boost to their ego. It makes them feel accomplished to know that they are in either a family or creating a family or in a partnership that has them developing themselves. Like they can develop themselves in this partnership because the woman is demanding of that. But in a very what we call sincere, what we call the tribal way, is you need to prove and provide for me, because that's gonna make me feel safe, and that's gonna make me feel secure as a woman to have these children with you. And if you don't want to be that, then you could be a nomad, and that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. But the nomads, they never get to experience what we call that ego accomplishment of truly coming into their balance as a man and as a woman. Okay, so I'm going to leave you guys with these thoughts to think over, and Satnam.